Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing Liane Moriarty's Big Little Lies, talk very briefly about the author, go into a spoiler-free overview of the plot, talk about what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, who I'd recommend the book to, and finish off with what I'll be reading for next time. Liane Moriarty is an Australian author. She's been writing roughly for the last 15 years or so. This is the first of her stuff that I've read. This book, Big Little Lies, is something of a breakout novel for her. I think it's the fourth or fifth novelist she has written, and she's written a few other novels since then. This was made into an HBO series, and I think she's had another one of her works adapted into a movie, or is in the middle of being adapted. So she is actually on a pretty steady roll here. Big Little Lies is set in Australia and is about three women who become friends after their children begin attending kindergarten together at this school in kind of small town in seaside Australia. And the book kind of opens with a scene at a trivia night / fundraiser for what are called smart boards at the kindergarten. And we soon realize that something is amiss and that there is someone who will be murdered. So the book is kind of set up as a murder mystery that somehow these three women are involved. To give you a little bit more detail would be kind of spoilers, but each of the three main characters have their own kind of secrets or part of their family life that they're kind of working through. I don't want to spoil it, so I won't give you more than that, but those three stories kind of come to a head at the end of the novel. And I thought that the pacing of the novel is really, really strong, especially for the first two-thirds. We'll talk about the last third and the things I didn't like, but the first two-thirds of the novel, the pacing was really good. The book starts with a very, very strong opening chapter. Liane Moriarty, there's kind of a thing in screenwriting. One of the tips you often hear in screenwriting is to start with a really arresting image. There's a very arresting image of a fight breaking out at a party where the men are dressed as Elvis and the women are dressed as Audrey Hepburn. So I think she carried that through, that piece of advice, and that works really well for this book. I found the book to be very, very funny. There's some really heavy topics I'll talk about in a little bit, but I found overall that the book was really funny. It reminded me a lot of a book I read earlier in the year called Good Neighbors. I like this quite a bit more. Being kind of similar, the small town where everybody kind of is in everybody else's business. But I felt the humor of this, and it was kind of a dry Australian humor, fit the book really, really well, and it kind of definitely lifts the book up a little bit and kind of brings it tonally out of a book that would be probably rather depressing without it. So I did appreciate the humor in the book. Things I didn't quite like as much, I think that there's a lot going on in the book. In the last third, I feel the author rushed a little bit. There's a couple places where I wish she had expanded a little bit on some actions. There's things that are mentioned that are kind of skipped over, that aren't really given full shrift, just because there's so much going on. And the book, because she has kind of three main characters, she has to decide which of the characters to end on, in my opinion. There's one character whose story I cared about more than the other two, and that character does not get the full ending. They get, an ending, but the book doesn't end on them, and I thought that was misfire. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this book. I will say for people, there are a lot of heavy topics in this book, so if you're someone who tends to shy away from things like domestic violence or like there is a sexual assault in the book, I wouldn't say that it's described graphically, but it is there. There's an undercurrent of kind of concerns about sexually abusing. There's a character who gets really wrapped up in the idea of saving children who are being sold into sex slavery. So if mentions of that weird you out or bother you, I would maybe stay away from this book, because that's there. Again, it's not done graphically, but it does get raised in the book. But overall, I enjoyed it quite a bit. It's a very, very quick read. It's kind of set up as a thriller. One of the things that I didn't mention, I forgot that needs to be mentioned, she does something really interesting here where at the end of the chapter, she has what you're reading as basically a interview and a police report. So it does a good job of foreshadowing action to come and giving you a sense of propulsion in the book. It's kind of like a cliffhanger, but it's not really a cliffhanger, and so I think she uses that to great effect in the book. So you'll be reading it, and then one of the other moms at the kindergarten will give her account of something that makes you want to read about that, which you know is kind of coming up, because the book is kind of set up in what they call flash forward. So the first scene takes place much later than the second chapter of the book, and you kind of are working up to that first chapter, if that makes sense. So I thought that that was really well done there. And that's it for Big Little Lies. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I was pleasantly surprised. I think it is a very quick, snappy, fun read. So I definitely recommend that if that's something up your alley. Next time I'm going to be reading something completely different, 2034, which I think is going to be the first work of really military fiction that I've read for the channel, so I'm looking forward to that. I think this is a relatively new book, so we'll see how that goes. So until next time, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll have my Twitter link below. I'll also have the link to that video review of Good Neighbors if you want to check out something that has maybe a similar setup to Big Little Lies, if not, in my opinion, done as well. So until next time, bye.